Thank you, Arturo. So, I had the great fortune to coach um, Vanessa yesterday, and or not yesterday, a few days back. But we got really clear on a lot of a lot of the things that they're working on, and kind of narrowed down like what to work on. And so, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be doing speed rounds of like your project. So it's Arturo, can you bring up the screen, please?
Um, here, here. Oh, hold on. There you go.
Yes. Okay, so your project, your artistic relevance, and examples of your artistic relevance. And what that looks like in a 2-minute process is getting straight to the point. My project is a music and film festival for under-resourced artists in the BIPOC and LGBTIIA plus communities. My artistic relevance is that I have 15 years of production experience and festival curation experience, and have developed relationships with artists to participate in festivals and venues, and to host festivals. Examples of my experience: I have a collage of programs that I've worked on, and I've curated and managed a choir of 60 performers. I've done public facing events in Golden Gate Park and Yerba Buena. I have founded a festival and have over 7 years of festival management and curating experience. And so that's just the quick version of it. So how you're going to do that is you're just going to take a minute and just bullet 3 things that you would use for examples of your experience. You've been working on your relevance. You know what your project is. Um, this is a speed round. There's no room for I don't know. I might not. Maybe I will. This is like what you're gonna do. So Arturo, can you give an example of like what we were just applying for, and a speed round version?
Yeah. Our project was to um, solidify the program of transformative grant writing. Um, and the things that we have been doing, the artistic relevance was that, we have 2 years of doing this work. Prior to this, we have been supporting artists to apply for their grants and produce their material. And another artistic relevance component was the event that we did. We did an event in June that was our first live event, in-person event with everybody, where we are connecting all of our communities together, or this big community together. So all of these things add up to, we are ready to get more funding to solidify this program, right? Our artistic relevance was basically all the cohorts that we have done before, all the grants that we have applied, all the grants that we have secured for the artists, and all the production that we have done before with the artists. So that's a good example of artistic relevance.
All right, Vanessa, would you like to go next?
Sure. My project is an artist residency centering on reclaiming spaces in Oakland through artistic activations. I have over 10 years experience as an arts educator and producing arts and residence programs in collaboration with Bay Area classrooms and community organizations. I think that's it. Am I missing something?
Norman.
Okay.
Norman. Thank you, Vanessa. Very clear.
My project is a novel set in San Francisco's Mission District about the Latinx experience. What was the second prompt? I'm sorry, I can't keep them all in my head.
Sure, no problem. Artistic relevance, and then your examples
My
of your
artistic
experience.
relevance is that I've been writing, and since I was 15, I've been publishing since 2001 in major journals like Ziziva. I've also lectured in high schools and universities like University of Michigan. And my artistic, was it the last one? Examples?
Excellent.
I've published 2 collections of short fiction in 2017 and one recently this year in 2022 by small presses.
Beautiful.
Awesome. Thank you. And thank you for mentioning the specific community for folks who are just reading your application. Miley.
My goodness. I got a little chickilies when you call my name, Therese. So let's go. Give me 2 seconds.
All right. I'm going to come back to you.
Thank you.
All right. JT.
I don't think I'm ready today, to be honest with you.
Okay. Elizabeth.
Well, so my project is an environmental activation through music and dance performance for BIPOC communities in the Bay Area. My artistic relevance is I've been performing for over 15 years. I have studied environmental studies and ethnic studies in school. I've been a community organizer for over 5 years. And I have co-founded an arts and cultural collective.
Awesome.
Beautiful.
Super clear. Miley.
All right. So my project will be a short film that talks about lives, victories, and struggles of the immigrants, artists, and space that facilitates and create impact movement to bring change in our community throughout audiovisual projections and art exhibitions. I have 15 plus years working with storytelling, and for the past 5 years with media, visual. And as an example, I can share the Works Collab institution video that I just finalized this week. Sorry,
Awesome.
I get all struggle on this.
That's great. That's great.
Okay.
It's good. This is good.
Tasha.
My project is a photojournalism project documenting my ceramic work as a Black ceramicist, as well as BIPOC chefs who are basically hidden in restaurants and get no credit for their work. My artistic relevance is that, you know, highlighting the works of these people and of myself is extremely important. And I plan to tell stories. And my example of experience, I have 10 plus years working in fine dining, and I've been working with some of these people for 10 plus years since I moved to the city, basically. And I basically helped form a nonprofit last year. So that's my experience.
Lovely.
Oops.
Ira.
So my project is We Conjure Dragons, a series of 6 illustration books that will be focused on collective care that I will both write and illustrate. The series will include resources and learning tools for people to practice in their communities and with themselves. For my artistic relevance, it will involve connections with storytelling, such as being a caregiver, reading stories to my nephews and cousins, or using storytelling to bridge connections via making zines, and how I saw it used as a healing tool for survivors when I worked at the Women's Resource Center and with Project Survive. An example of this is when I led a zine for Justice Global's US and China Solidarity campaign.
Awesome. Laz.
Hello everyone. So my project is a screen printing youth program that's going to allow myself to pass on the traditional way of screen printing to the youth, and also give them knowledge in fashion industry at the moment. My artistic relevance, I've been a graphic artist since 9th grade, and I've been screen printing for 6 years.
Great. Very clear. Very clear. I appreciate that. And I've got a lot of nuggets for you when we get into the coaching this
Yes.
next week. So I'm excited about that. So folks, we're doing great on time. Do you have any questions for any of your fellow artists about their projects? Is there anything when they were talking about it, you're like, how are they going to do that project? Or I'll give you an example. Tasha, I know the answer to this, but I'm going to pretend I don't. How many restaurants are you looking at?
I'm looking at 4
Chefs.
to 6 to be safe.
Okay, and where might these restaurants be located?
In San Francisco, Mission District, North Beach, my neighborhood, The Haight, and Noe Valley.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions about Tasha's project?
Oh, I do. What would be the process for interviewing?
Tasha, you're on mute.
Sorry. I will be doing a video interview as well as a written interview with the chefs, mostly the video just to highlight, them working, and then a written process just to, get more in depth about who they are and where they come from.
Nice.
Any questions? Any more questions for Tasha? Miley, question for you. What are some
Yes.
of the other examples outside of Arts Collab that you will be using for your, examples that you can do the work?
So I have had a very large volunteer work with the community, the church community that I worked with in Brazil, that I have some work with the projects that I created. However, that's not gonna really be a media visual works. It's more as in a collage of community work that I had. I was even going to check if this is okay. It's not really footage of video. So it would be a different collection of media that I've been putting it together. So did I answer your question?
Yeah.
And
Archie?
then of course there is queer arts feature that I'm also going to be doing something very similar. We are starting a wellness meeting for the community. It's starting in September, that will have sound healing as well as in body movement and art therapy. So the idea is to collect some footage from that work as well in those gatherings to sample some of the work. And I already have some of the stuff that I've been volunteering and working with them that can also be used as a work sample for that
Great.
background.
Arturo, what we're doing is just having folks ask questions, a couple questions of like that they didn't get answers to in the or just think, just questions that came up about projects. Does anybody else have any questions for any of the other artists?
I have a question for Les.
Yes.
So you were on the spot when you were talking about your experience. I have been a graphic artist since age 9. I have been doing screen printing for the last 6 years. Are there specific projects, specific showings, specific moments where you have, for example, taught youth in the past that you can include as part of your example?
Yes, I have. I actually taught Project Level, which is a big nonprofit organization in the Fillmore district. And that's what I'm trying to bring that over to the Bayview community. But I've taught them for a while, and I, at the moment, will be teaching the Urban Ed Academy in the Bayview. But I definitely want to do my own thing. But yeah, that's the experience.
Now, what are some of the things that you learned during those particular experiences that you mentioned?
Oh, the main thing is I need some extra hands. Literally, it's impossible for one person to teach your kids. But I learned that you got to make sure you're sourcing the kids right and get kids that are interested in actually being in there, because you can't really push art on a kid. It just got to be into you. If you're not into it, then it's kind of, you're just wasting space and time. That was one of the biggest things. Their attention span is very short. So that's probably the main thing I learned.
Do you think that that knowledge could be conducive to you developing a more successful program?
Absolutely. But again, still, they got to be into it. But yeah, that could change.
I love how you made that absolutely a question halfway. Absolutely.
It was yeah, absolutely. But I'm still a firm believer that, you know, you need to source kids that are into actually being there.
So just grounding it into what we're doing right now, this part that you just talked about, this is what you need to develop during your in the portion of your artistic narrative, right? And sorry, artistic relevance. Why? Because precisely out of all of the past experiences, good and bad, you will be gathering, accumulating knowledge and expertise to now develop your own thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that is why it's important for you to break it down. Now, there's a key component in the thing that you just said, and this is also useful for everybody. Sometimes you will experience challenges. Nothing wrong with experiencing challenges during your process, your projects, but it's not about what was wrong. You know, like you really should not make your narrative about what was wrong, but rather about what you learned from it, you know.
Okay.
Because even out of bad experiences you learn. And the thing is if they see that, oh, you know what, they didn't have it together, I struggled with this that, their take is going to be, oh, this person really needs to have a lot of like structure before they can do something, you know. Rather than, oh, this person is able to take these challenges and create responses for those challenges.
Okay.
Thank
you.
Yeah.
Learn what I learned.
Miley, do you have your hand raised?
Yeah, just to pick back super quickly here. So then it's okay to add, as in this experience, let's say the introductory document filmmaking production class that I took as a CSF, that gave me emphasis on fundamental skills, including documentary producing, sound recording, lighting, cinematography, and I've been applying this, you know, production practice into my art. So that is also a relevance, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Because remember, this is everything that you have been gathering along the way that has given you the tools to now complete a successful project.
Thank you.
I think we can, yeah.
Great. So Arturo, I'm going to go ahead and just ask one more round if anybody has anything else they want to add to this section. Any questions or observations before we move on with our training today?
Orale.
Okay, Arturo, I'm going to pass the baton to you.
Nice. And we're making the most out of our time together today, because we really want to make room for spaciousness when it comes to when we talk about grant research. Okay, so the next part about today is work samples, folks. I think at this point we understand that there is a difference between your artistic relevance and your work samples, right? Artistic relevance. This example that Miley just gave, the last thing that you said, like I took this training and I learned these things during this training. Beautiful, amazing, powerful. This is it. Doesn't mean that that is your work necessarily, right? So everything that is an experience, a useful experience, an enriching experience goes in the artistic relevance. For the work samples, we're focusing specifically on the things that you have done, that you have produced, that you have developed in the past to make, to you know, to show your abilities, right? To show the different angles of your practice, the different skills that you have developed. Now, it's important that we acknowledge what work samples do. This is you know, it's very simple. The person that is going to be reviewing your grant is not just looking at your work samples. Sometimes you get to see upwards to 100 different projects. You know, each project has between 2 and 5 work samples, 6 sometimes, 10 sometimes. And some of these work samples will have similar, you know, addressing similar issues, similar aesthetics, you know, particularly, you know, I haven't personally reviewed, or I haven't been a panel, a grant panel, in a grant panel for a literary grant. But you can imagine that the people that is judging based on content, they will have to read everything, right? And find the different, the differences, the aesthetic differences between writing styles, between, you know, graphic styles, between musical styles. The evaluators want to give their full attention to your project, so choosing great work samples can help them do that. So first thing that we told you the last time, it's better if you have 2 strong work samples, it's better to present just 2 work samples instead of 5 kind of good work samples, right? Like I have 2 strong work samples, and then I have this very blurry picture of like 10 years ago, and the experience was amazing, but the work sample is not amazing, right? Okay, then we will have to balance it out. We will have to really look at, is it worth for us to share this work sample? Now, I want to make sure that the reason that we're making this space for this is because I want to share with you a couple of past work samples, and I want to make sure that everybody here has a list of 5 things that you are ready to share as your work, or that you're ready to develop as your work sample. It doesn't have to be that your work samples are ready, but you have 5 things that you can develop and turn into work samples, right? I am going to start with, this is from our cohort 3, Kaya. Her project was to create a gallery of her artwork, and her gallery was going to be complete with graphic work and installation work. So the first work sample, she had room for 3 work samples. Important things to note here. She created a PDF document, and this is what we are encouraging you to do, to create a PDF document where you can include the pictures, you know, your name, what is this project. It's a solo exhibition at F8 Gallery in San Francisco in 2008. Goddess Culture, a solo exhibition. Very brief synopsis. What production went into creating this show. For this show, I created 24 pieces: oil, watercolor, embroidery, installation, intervention, right? So then let me remind you, her project was to create a solo exhibition that was complete with graphic work and installations. So this is basically, hey, look, I have done this before, right? I have done this before. And part of her grant was also, you know, part of the installations that she was going to do is that she was going to be printing on canvas. She was going to be printing on clothing. So this is a work sample number 2. Kaya, art in the real world, clothing line and collaboration. I began printing my work clothes, my work on clothes, sorry, since 2020. And these are some of the work samples. You know, that's the way that she was presenting the embroidery that she was doing in different clothes, in different pieces. And then this is, you know, this was not fully relevant, but we made it relevant. She had created a collaboration with a skateboarding company. And basically what we said is, or the angle for this is, I have the practice now to put my work out into physical objects. So this is what this work sample was about. And the final part of it was, oh, no, this is repeated. The final project was this particular piece right here. It was an embroidery on two different, I don't know the name of these two different frames, and then the connection between the two of them. It was one of the installations that she had created and that she was proposing to expand for her new project that she was going for. Okay, this is one person. Person number two, Laurita, one of my favorite work samples of all times. So basically, she produced a video. This is a person that was a musician that was writing a grant to have a mobile venue so that she could teach kids music on parks and on social spaces. And this was geared particularly to BIPOC communities in the Bayview, in the Mission, and in Oakland. So she could travel around. And she created a video that I'm gonna share with you right now. But the way that she presented this video was she created a PDF where she was explaining the different parts of her video. And not only that, she annexed a sample of how it looked like when she was doing session planning. Songs, activities, books, props, and then this is a sample of a lesson plan. You know, this is how I do it. This is my itinerary. This is my developmental value for each component of the session. And these are the different aspects that how I'm breaking down the different sessions and the value that she was adding to the kids in each session. So this is very clear, like these are the things that I'm doing, and this is how each one of these things are impacting the kids. And then I'm not gonna share with you the whole thing because it's for minutes. I don't know if you can even listen to it. Hold on. There you go. So first, work samples by Laura Camacho. Then she broke it down to as a performer. Who am I as a performer, right? This is her performing in different spaces, in different venues. This is her experience as a music teacher.
The dance moves for Boom Diata since we're not going to see each other next week. 1, 2, 3, 4. Boom Diata, boom. So you found a C on your keyboard, right?
Yeah.
Now, what you see the notes are moving up. What note is above C?
It is a D.
That makes sense? Okay, so let's only do.
So she's showcasing, like, in practical terms, what is you know, how is she teaching kids, and how are these kids progressing?
Hello, Francine. Hello, Francine. Hello, Francine. We're really glad you're here. so glad you're here, and 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 you're here. Whoa! Was it hot today? Oh, yeah, so hot. Can you show me your cold?
All right. So that's work sample number 2 that we have for you today. And finally, haha, we have a 2-minute work sample that we want to share with you. By the way, the music and this video is also by Laura and the Bad Hombres. And this is a collaborative effort between our very own Miley, Arts Collab, and a bunch of artists that we produced last June. Check out, see if you can spot the different elements here.
I met her.
Sorry, I want to make a stop here. You see that we're not letting things to interpretation. We're being very specific. For this event, we created spaces for connection, collaboration, and creation, such as this collaborative mural, right?
And they're like San Francisco buildings.
Quedaron, van a llamar. A ver, yo te llamo atrás que termine la clase. Saludos, un abrazo.
Oh no, that's done.
There you go.
This is important, guys. Notice how we are including the logos of our partners here at the end. This is basically to, yes, this is to thank them, of course, but it's also for everybody else to know that we're being supported by these organizations, right? So this is like, writing a little bit of the swag of like, oh, maybe you guys don't know Arts Collab, but you know Acción Latina, you know the Mission Cultural Center, you know La Peña Cultural Center, the National Performance Network. So these kind of like things together enhance the value of your work sample, right? You're not just writing on your own credibility, but also on the credibility of people that are established and that, are recognized. So do you guys have any comments or questions about the work samples that you just saw?
Amazing work samples.
Thank you, thank you.
I really liked how second work sample for the videos, how she, broke it down with the video. I wasn't 100% sure that this was something that could be done. So I'm really inspired by it. So thanks for sharing.
Absolutely. And by the way, can we have a round of applause to Miley for the amazing work that she did with that last sample that we watched?
Bravo, bravo, bravo.
Miley, killing it in the game. We're super, super happy with this. Thank you so much. Yeah,
So
yes.
I saw something dropped in the chat about being able to have multiple pieces in one work sample as a PDF. Can Therese, can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Sure. Yeah. So essentially, what you can do is you can like in my case, I was doing a festival and I wanted to show that I had done multiple festivals. So what I did is I took like five different show flyers, one for a Balkan festival, one for a Latinx festival, one for a hip hop festival, one for a country, one for spoken word, and I put them all on. I put all the flyers on 11 and a half or like a Leo size piece of paper, and then I turned it into a PDF. And I put an example of like, these are community based shows that happened in the Mission, and Lower Hater and all over the city. So I'm happy to show you how to do that in one of our sessions. If you make a note, I'm happy to show you how to do that. And anybody that wants to learn how to do that, I'm happy to show you.
Thank you.
And notice that notice how particularly I want to refer to the one that Laura did, the second one, but actually the three of them, particularly the second one, is like, because I have all of these areas of expertise, I want to show you the main ones, right? Like I want to show you my expertise as a storyteller is not only one thing, it's a couple of different things. And because I have it recorded, I can put snippets of it together, right? Or her classes, right? Her teaching with her students. It's like, I'm not gonna give you just one moment or one specific recording. I can give you 10-second snippets of moments where I am teaching, right? So I can show you that I know how to do it. It's not a one-off, but actually it's a practice. So in this case, your work sample don't become just about one class that you taught, but rather the different moments where you have been engaging in teaching, right? So for projects that are broader, like yours, like yours, Miley, is like, listen, this is my practice as an artist. This is my practice as a storyteller or as a creator or as a teacher. This is my practice as a producer, showcasing the work that I've done. So it's important that, it is very important. The first thing that is important to say is important that you really stick to the guidelines of the grant. If they tell you each work sample needs to be one page, don't do 2 pages, just do 1 page, right? But within that 1 page, and that's the pro tip of Therese was giving you, instead of, they say 1 page, they didn't say what size a page. So you can do, instead of doing a letter size, you can do a legal size. It's tiny bit larger, and then make the most out of that, right? So the good part about work samples is that there's a lot of loopholes, truly there's a lot of loopholes. And as long as you don't, please do not include a book when they're asking you for a page. And if you're including a book, just include the 1 page of the book that you want them to read, for example, right? So really always direct them to the thing that they want to see. One last thing that I want to mention before I forget. Last cohort, Joe, our good friend Joe, who was actually collaborating in the painting of the mural, he had one of his work samples was a mural that he painted at Candlestick Park, and he got some press for doing that. And the press release, the article that they wrote about him was super amazing, super generous, and it included parts of the pictures of the mural. So we had him cut and paste screenshots of this article into a work sample, right? Now, this is very important. Media coverage is not a work sample. Media coverage is not a work sample, but if the media is talking about how you did the things, if it contains pictures of you working, if it contains pictures of your final product, you can craft it and turn it into a work sample. Anyone has any questions?
Arturo, can I say something about media?
Yes, please.
So for all of you performers and folks who have quotes or don't have quotes, I recommend getting them and using them when you are trying to get more press or you're trying to get someone to cover your show. That's when press and media come in handy. People want to see that other people think you're awesome, or they took the time to cover you. So that's what you want to make it a point to like try to get people to come to your shows that are from the press so that you can get those samples for getting future press coverage.
All right, so
Oh, I have a question.
yes.
For the you mentioned that like if the press has like your work samples. So for example, what if you're featured in like a magazine or like a zine or something that talks about like your bio and like work you've done in the past? Could that also count as a work sample, or would it have to be more talking about your practice? Or sorry, more talking about like a specific project.
There is.
Can you say that again?
Yeah, like so let's say for example you're featured in like a magazine slash like a zine, and then you have like the PDF of that like page talking about like your bio and then like some work you've done. Could that also count as a sample, or would it have to be more specific to like one specific project and like one specific event?
That's a
You
great
want it to,
question.
if it's gonna, that's a great question, as Arturo, to echo Arturo. Um, Essentially, what you want to think when you think work sample is, does this apply to my ability to do the thing? So if this is for something that you did, um, with an organization in LA in 2000, unless it's related to your project of environmental, XYZ, it probably doesn't relate. We have a muralist who just literally set on fire in the middle of the time that he was working with us, and he was interviewed by like all the local folks, but it was very specific to his murals. So he could just say, Castro mural at this location. So he could do a screenshot with, what is it, Channel 7. Channel 7 is, unveiling of, mural in the Castro. And that applied to what he was trying to get, which is funding for another mural. So if it applies to the thing you're trying to get funded, yes. If it's just general brag or general awesome, save that for when you're trying to get more press or somebody to write about you.
You
Thank
know,
you.
I actually found the example that I was telling you about, and this is relevant to what you're talking about, to what you're asking. So see, what is really cool, he uses art to make state parks in California more accessible for all. Like that's what that is, this statement is all about cultural equity, more accessible for all, right? And then, this is Joe. This is Joe. Some of you know him. And, this is a super long article. So you cannot include this whole article as a work sample, right? But what you can do is, what I asked him to do was to cut, I think it was something about that here. Our goal is to have young artists that, like me, have grown up in the community to do the community work by creating artwork. So just these particular parts, right? And I was like, just take screenshots as if you were grabbing you know, like a physical copy of a paper and cutting it and cutting the different chunks of text, and then put it together, you know, make a collage, basically. Make a collage so that they can see that A, you're in the media, B, that you're painting right here. Literally, it shows that you're painting, and then it finally showcases your artwork, right? Now I'm hesitating to see if this is the one that, yeah, this must have been the one. So then again, remember that you're in control of your narrative. If the media, if the article or the thing that you were quoted in, or that you were featured in, talks about your work, talks about the production, talks about the value, all of these things, yes, utilize it as a work sample. If it doesn't, you can just take portions of it and then contextualize it. You know, there is nothing wrong with, you know, making it more specific. Yeah, just taking the elements that you have and making it more specific. This is another one of our former students, the heroes behind Quiros. Hey, that's Juan Manuel, cohort 3, what's up? Artist Juan Manuel Carmona. A new SF mural featuring 12 LGBTQ plus legends to spark curiosity and mucho amor. So basically, you know, if you read this article, not all of it is about the work that they're doing, but it is about the you know, ultimately the thing that they're trying to put together, and the, you know, the work that they did. Okay.
Arturo?
Yes. All right. So we're gonna go to the next part of our training today. We're gonna do this somewhat, you know, we're gonna streamline it because we want to be ready for when our friend Kate comes along. We are going to look at, oh, no, you know what, actually, yeah, it's okay. Let's just do it like that. Guys, your homework today, before I move from this, your homework today, and if possible at all, before the end of this session, I want you to send in the chat to write the 5 things that are going to become your work samples. Okay, 5 things that are going to become your work samples. If you have them, if you have clarity around about them right now, and I know that some of you already have clarity around it because I know some of your grant applications. If you already have them, write them. You know, just have to write the title. What are the 5 work samples that you're working on? Exactly. Thank you, Therese. Sorry, I'm trying to organize my computer because I opened a lot of things.
I have a proposal, Arturo.
Yeah.
Why don't we maybe have JT do his artist presentation?
Yes, that would be amazing. That would be ideal, actually.
JT?
Yes.
Were you still planning on doing your presentation today, or?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you want to you want to be able to share the screen, or do you want to send the stuff to our
Yes. Share screen. Okay. Okay. So I can go now?
Yep.
I close my eyes and see myself in the arms of my people in arms away from harm's way in the warmth of the safe place in the boondocks. I may never know the home base, bias pathways to walk, but I hope our beats make a good keepsake with rhymes and line breaks. I lace to the clean base. We may never meet face to face, but I know our skin has felt the same sun along the belt of the equator. We're close like neighbors. You hear your battle cry, Pangyaki, invoking the chi in me to feel our strength and solidarity, to set us all free from the mountains of Mindanao, Visayas, Luzon, to the mountains of Lesotho. We strong. I am because you are Ubuntu. Kasamas, I salute you. My allies, I salute you. It's still one struggle of many fronts and ends. I see myself in you, a reflection of who I am in Lakesh. All right, everyone. Thank you so much again for this space. My name is Jay Theo. Let me see if I can turn on this. If I can share my screen here. Okay. My bad. Could y'all see my screen? All right.
And not
Right
yet.
there. Could y'all see that?
There you go.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, folks. Shout out to Canva for the template. My name is Jay Theo. It's a helicopter. It's a JXTHEO with a silent X. I have my reasons. I use they, them pronouns. All pronouns are okay. Moving on. All right, so I stand for environmentalism and internationalism. I support all matters of justice and all movements for the planet and the people. I've had 11 plus years of organizing within the last 16 years for public education, housing justice, workers, and human rights to protect ecosystems, ancestral homes, and sacred lands for indigenous self-determination and third world liberation, for national sovereignty and genuine democracy in the Philippines. I am a poet and a hip hop artist. So I'm releasing a book called Paper Trail of Freedom. It's a graphic poetry book. I finished it and released it in 2020, but I wasn't able to continue with the release process. I only did like one little online event. And a lot of difficult things befell me in the last 2 years, which halted me from being able to do so. But what I'm applying for through the support of Arts Collab and SFAC is a music project in continuation of the Paper Trail of Freedom. So I thank you all for bringing me the energy to come back to my craft as an artist. Yes, I was taken away from that in the last year and a half or so. I'm a hip hop artist. I'm a member of a band called Boondock Squad. We've been together for almost 14 years, and we've had an album that's like 85% done for over a year. So hopefully we can drop that to you all soon. And I'm excited about other upcoming projects. I am a boxer and an educator. So I run a program called Bayanihan Boxing, which focuses on presence of mind and management of anxiety. So it has a strong mental health focus. And I teach people of all levels, and I love to train with people of all levels and all ages as well. And I like to make it as accessible as possible for everyone. I'm an educator. I'd like to bring the boxing program actually to the school that I teach in. So I teach in public high school, and I teach Filipino, and I'm also in grad school. All right. So I'm happy to contribute my time and energy. I'm a big fan of everyone here, getting to know everyone for the last several weeks. I love everything that you are doing and supporting. I'd love to be there for you. I can provide cultural offerings and performances, boxing classes, courses in Philippine history, society and culture, courses in Filipino language, and a bunch of other things. Yes, you can support me with collaborations, anything else, anything to be excited about. Really kind of keeps me going. Right now I'm going through a very difficult time. Landlord just put like a summons on my the responses to several.
Yourself and just bringing your art into our presence and for all of your grace and gratitude. I can feel it.
Thank you.
I'm totally down to host some cooking at my place Monday or Tuesday if anybody wants to come over and make some batch cooking. I can host in my kitchen in the mission. So Laz is on board. Anybody else?
I'm on board.
All right. All right. So Laz and I are gonna figure out a way to make you some batch food, and
Yeah.
um,
Or
you can also just maybe I'll send out an email after this, and people can think about it this afternoon and see how you might be able to contribute to the meal of fuel, the fuel train.
The fuel train. Sorry, my connection broke right at the end, but congratulations, JT. What an amazing contribution, brother.
Can we
Honestly,
get some love for JT? Yes.
fire presentation.
Ooh, where's the fire at me?
Man, what a powerful voice and what a delight to be in your presence, brother. Seriously. Um, it's part of what we're here to do, right? To remind ourselves that we're at this level, we have that much power and we have so much to do with it. So thank you for bringing that into the space. Anyone has any questions, comments for JT?
I love that the Canva that you use. I haven't seen anything like that. It was very cool. If you hadn't given props out to Canva, I would have been like, wow, that's some like unicorn magic right there.
Yeah.
on a personal level, man, you could train me with some boxing, man. I'll pay for it.
I love that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Love that.
Yeah. DM me your number, man, for sure. Send you mines.
I see Tabitha's banana and hand up.
Was that?
Tabitha?
She's in the banana. In recognition, I think.
Yeah,
All right.
thank you. Like any just moments to just like cook with other folks is great. That helps. And then just even just boxing, training other people or training with people would be nice breaks during this struggle.
If you send me a link to your offerings of boxing, I'd be more than happy to put it out to my network as well.
Thank you.
Lechi, I go for daily runs around here in the Presidio, and I at times just take off the Golden Gate Bridge too, which is a beautiful restorative view. I always feel very healed and grounded and ready to go on my day. So you're welcome to join me anytime. It's a beautiful, beautiful trail.
Oh, yeah, I would love that actually.
Yeah, no, gracias, JT. Thank you so much. We talked yesterday, so we're in solidarity, and that always, and everybody here, remember, you're not alone. We all go through the goods, the bads, the uglies, and it's important when we can to hold space, right? To hold space for ourselves, for one another, for each other, and for everybody. There you go. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. Okay, folks, we're gonna go to the next part as we are getting ready to welcome Kate, who's gonna be here any minute now. But before we welcome her, I want to share with you what is the next up with our grant. We have been doing a great job at clearing the first half of the grant. And in my opinion, is the most complicated part of the grant. It is the why, right? Why do we do these grants? The narrative questions. This is the why. You know, why do you want to improve the conditions of your community? How is that you are prepared to do these things? Right? Oh, you say that you say that you have all of these experiences. Prove it. Show me your resume. Show me your artist bio. Show me your work samples. Right? This is where we are building meaning. This is where we are creating meaning with our ideas, right? In other words, we're curating our project. And then, well, support materials, part of this. And then we're gonna go to the artist project. This is the how, okay? Now you told me already what, you know, what is that you're gonna do, why you are doing it, but then tell me how, right? Like in this portion, generally speaking, grants will have different ways to ask about the how. And this is not, it's important for me to mention this, this is not, for this part, we definitely included parts of the San Francisco Arts Commission grant and part of the California Artists grant. Therese, can you text Kate the link to our Zoom right now?
You know, I don't think I have her number, believe it or not.
Okay.
Can you just can you send it to me on WhatsApp and I'll happy to handle it.
Oh yes. All right. So for this next portion of the training, we're gonna be focusing on the how. Ideas and processes, collaborations, community impact. How will your project provide a public benefit to your audience? Personal impact. And these are the two parts that we pulled from the California Arts Council grants. And the reason that we did this is because it makes a better job at breaking down the reasons, right? The reasons that you are engaging in this. What is the impact that you're gonna have? Your personal impact, they divided into personal impact, artistic impact, and professional impact. You know, so that is that's a big part of it. And then finally, your grant plan or activity. I'm getting these messages. Okay. The grant plan or activity. For this, they're gonna ask you to break it down. Imagine that this is a ladder, right? The goal, the final goal, the top of the ladder is the final project. But what are the in-between steps? Now, this week, we're only going to focus on these two, ideas and processes and collaborations. Now, what is about ideas and processes? Reading it real quick, describe the ideas and processes involved in making your project and your role in the creative process. It is important to give the panelists a clear picture of what you're doing and how you are doing it. In other words, this is very specific about your craft. This is where you can talk freely about, you know, if you're a graphic artist, my style is a combination between cubism and puntillism. I'm gonna be using acrylic paint and aerosols to create shadows and forms and shapes and figures, right? If you are a, in the case of Tasha, you know, my, hey, Kate, we're almost ready for you. In the case of Tasha, you know, my craft has a lot to do with the different, you know, forms of clay and materials that we're utilizing. For this project, I'm going to be using this kind of equipment that I use here and there. Just breaking down the specifics about your craft. In the ideas and processes section, you're really wanting to showcase that you know what you're talking about, right? That you're not just going to figure it out when you get the money. So this is a part where you solidify a lot of, you know, what you do and how you do it. Remember, this is the how. The next portion of this is the collaborations. If you're working with other partners, collaborators, please outline the role in the project. Now, say that you are creating a demo. In the case of Tabitha, you're creating an EP that is your demo. So it's totally okay that you're not going to do 100% of your project by yourself. You are leading the project. It is your project. You know, you're moving along with it. But in this case, you can say, oh, this person is going to be my producer. We are partnering with this studio in San Francisco, in Oakland. And this is a really good way to basically to ground your project in the partnerships that you're going to be creating, right? You're grounding your project in the names of other people that have also their own work. In this part, you can include a little bit of their value, a little bit of their expertise. We had a really, really good experience with this particular portion of collaborations because, you know, during your cultural equity, we're asking you to research institutions and organizations that are doing similar work, right? So you might say, oh, you know what, in the case of JT, I'm going to be partnering with the Soma Filipino Cultural District here in San Francisco, right? And so my recommendation is write their name, write their, you know, write their participation. And when you finish your grant, before you send it, when you finish your grant, you should reach out to them and say, hey, listen, I am putting forward this grant. This is not a document. This is not what is the word? A binding document at all. This is just a proposal. But I just wonder if it's okay that I include you as my collaborator. In the case that I get the grant, then I will come to you and then we can talk about a partnership, right? So what our friend Jen did during her cultural equity research, she found this organization called Fibershed, and she included Fibershed as a collaborator. Now, when she was done writing her grant, and before she submitted the grant, she sent this grant to Fibershed, and she was like, hey, listen, this is my project. This is what I'm trying to do. So I just want to know if it's okay that I include you as a collaborator. Well, this organization was so thrilled with the project that they invited her to come to the space, and then they offered the physical space to work on her project. They offered materials, all the materials that she needed, and they offered a stipend for her to produce this project. In other words, she got funding for their project outside of this outside of the grant that she was applying for, just through virtue of talking directly to the people and looking for these collaborators, right? And on top of that, she also got funding from the San Francisco Arts Commission. So bloop, all together, right? Be very mindful and be very intentional about the people that you're including as your collaborators. And we're going to, of course, take time next week to look into this and move forward with completing these parts. So again, this week we're going to be working on ideas and processes and collaborations. Do you guys have any questions?
All right, Arturo.
Okay. Just making one more space for one more. Sure. Are you guys sure you have no questions? Are you guys ready to go work on your ideas and processes and also to name all of your collaborators?
Oh, I have a question real quick.
Yeah.
So would we propose, with regards to budgeting, would we propose a certain budget if we were to want to collaborate with, let's say, an organization? Would we propose that right away, or is that something that we would do later on if we were to get the grant?
Can you repeat that, Elizabeth?
Oh, I had a question about collaborators, and I was wondering if we would, along with the project proposal, would we send them a like a budget right away, or is that something that we would do later on after we were to get a grant?
That is an amazing question. Generally speaking, you don't need to send your, your collaborators a budget, mainly because, again, there is no budget really, right? Like there is a grant application that can turn into a budget once you get a yes on the grant. But ultimately, you're just proposing the idea, right? Yes, it is possible that through this collaborative work, they will ask for a budget, and that is something that you can look into, but not from the beginning. Not from the go. Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Oh, and then now that you raised the thing about the budget, just to clarify, we're not, during our time together, we're not going to be developing a budget. Most individual grants are not going to require you, or more, at least the individual grants from San Francisco Arts Commission, California Arts Council, and LA Department of Culture Affairs are not going to ask you for a budget for your grant. But we will definitely have a workshop on budgeting in the future through Arts Collab. You had something else, Therese?
Yeah, before we go into Kate, I just wanted to say, to any of the folks I'm coaching, I'm happy to give you an overview of just the general budget layout and language for grants. I personally think it is good to make a budget so that if you get the money, you've informed how you're going to spend it before you get it, and also manage your expectations. But $5,000 can go a long way, believe it or not. So if you budget it correctly. So that's all I have to add, Octavo.
All right. Anyone else? Beautiful. All right. So that's gonna be your homework. Remember that we're gonna check in about this again next week. And now it is our pleasure to introduce you to this new section. This is something that we're adding now for this cohort, and we're really, really excited because this is going to allow us to not only apply for one specific grant, but to increase the amount of grants that we collectively are applying for. Before I introduce Kate, I just want to ground this work on part of what we had already seen before in our training sessions, which is the different sources of funding in the arts and culture ecosystem, right? And just to say, there will be multiple actors involved: institutions, organizations, philanthropists, individual givers, all of these spectrum of people are possibilities to get our work funded. So with that, I want to introduce our dear good friend Kate Goldstein, who is the Associate Director of Institutional Giving at SF Jazz and has been working on this field for over 10 years. So Kate, take it away. Welcome.
Hi, everybody. Thanks, Arturo.
Hello.
I currently handle all of the grant writing, foundation, and government grants for SF Jazz. I've been there about 5 years, and before that, I worked at Brava Theater, and before that at ACT, also handling grants for them. And I'm also a musician, and so I've done a little bit of grant writing for my own projects as an individual and also some freelance grant writing for other individual artists. So yeah, I think I'll just give you sort of an overview of how I would approach the process of figuring out what kind of funding is out there. And we can talk through some tools and sort of different ways to look at it. So as Arturo said, there's foundations, which are sort of private organizations, and then also these government agencies and other sources. You can think about this sort of from two ways. So, I think the first step is what you're already doing right now, which is sort of figuring out the details of your project and thinking through, are you working only in one artistic discipline, or are there overlaps in your project, maybe with public health or with education or public art? And from there, you can sort of think about what other kinds of funding might be available to you in addition to straight arts funders. And then sort of the easiest way to stay on top of what kinds of opportunities are out there are to look into what RFPs are currently public. So a lot of these institutions, the Arts Commission, especially the government agencies, but also a lot of private foundations put out these public calls for proposals. And they'll tell you exactly what kind of project they're looking to fund and how much they have available. And it's sort of a public call, and that can be competitive, but it's worth it to just sort of get those on your calendar. And then once you kind of have your pitch together, it's pretty easy from there to just sort of tailor it to each opportunity, and just keep trying, refining the way that you present your work. So I think there will be a sort of handout shared with you after this where I've listed some of the ways that I would go about staying on top of what RFPs, what requests for proposals are currently open. There are all of these different, CCI, the Center for Cultural Innovation, the San Francisco Arts Commission. There are a lot of different organizations at Philanthropy News Digest, Candid. They put out these sort of like digests of, every week, these are the newest requests for proposals that have come out, and they give you a quick idea of what those people are looking to fund. And so you can just take, sign up for those newsletters, and then you take 5 minutes a week and you just sort of glance through and click on whatever looks promising and start to build a calendar of opportunities that way. There are also these search engines. So I'm going to share my screen here and show you. Can everybody see this?
Yes.
Cool. So I mentioned this organization called Candid. So in my work with organizations, I subscribe to one of their services, which is called Foundation Directory Online. That's targeted more to organizations, 501c3s that are looking for grants. They also have this service called Grants to Individuals. And so Arturo is nice enough to sign up so that we can all take a look. And I think, so only one person can log in at a time. It will be made available to everybody after this to sort of let you play around and tailor the search to your own projects. So this is when you log in, and they also kind of break it up into two ways of going about looking at these opportunities. So if you scroll down, you'll see this section called current RFPs, so current requests for proposals. And I already have it tailored here to all arts and culture grants, but you can click in and see all subjects, or you can go through, maybe after you've looked at the arts ones, you want to see what education or human rights, other areas that your project might overlap with to cast a wider net. But for the sake of argument, we'll look at this arts and culture section. So there are 51 current RFPs. And you'll see the way that they're split out here gives you a pretty good sense of what they're looking for. So you can see this is for socially engaged fiction. So as a writer, you can say, okay, do I think I might fit into that or not? Some of these are, specific to a place, so the Houston Arts Alliance. So you can see pretty quickly whether or not you're going to fit into that. And then there's sort of, you can look at this, you can click in and see the full guidelines. So US Artists International, this is something as a musician that I'm really aware of. And so I would say, oh, that's open again. I want to look and see this is a quick overview of who's eligible and the amount that they'll put towards your project. And then if all of that is looking good, then I'll dive in and say, okay, I'm going to really look at the guidelines and consider applying. From here, you could also click on the funder, Mid-Atlantic Arts Foundation, if you want to see a little bit more about them and who all they typically fund. So you can see that they have an international geographic focus. They have these different program areas. So in addition to the touring international grants, they also have a program specifically for Latin American artists. So this will give you a little more information on who they are. So that's one way to go about it, is just to sort of keep on top of all of these open requests for proposals. And then, you can also add those to your calendar. If something looks promising, but you're not going to make that September 1st, August 31st deadline, you can just put that on your calendar for next year and say, okay, I'm going to work towards being ready next time. The other way to go about it that's a little bit more difficult, but worthwhile, is to just search for who these organizations are in general that might be interested in your work. So what you could do, you could just sort of put in a general search term here, or you can go into the advanced search and you can say, okay, so within the arts and culture, that would search all of these areas, but there are different, folk arts, performing arts. You can even get into, you have an arts and humanities, an arts project that overlaps with different languages or philosophy, whatever it is that kind of captures your specific genre and what this project is. But if you want to search for all of arts and culture, then you can also say, you're in California, so you want to make sure that you're looking for funders that are open to this geographic region. You can put in, if your project is going to work with youth, then that might be helpful to, screen out only the funders that are interested in funding projects with that population. Or you can leave some of these blank to sort of cast a wider net. There's also this, you can say how much you want them to give. You want them to have given millions of dollars, or, whatever it is that sort of will help you tailor this. But so this is a pretty broad search. And we come back with 84 grant makers. So you can narrow this way down. But even through here, it's helpful to just sort of look through and you can see where they're located. And then you can say, okay, Center for Cultural Innovation, we've heard about them. We can click in and then learn a little bit more about what it is they do. And so this is a little more time consuming, but it can give you sort of a scan of the field overall. So you can start to sort of make this list for yourself. And then from there, a calendar. So you can see there are deadlines for these different programs. Or you can reach out cold and just say, hey, I'm curious about your work. This is who I am, and start a conversation that way. So once if they do have a funding opportunity that's open, you can start to sort of tailor, okay, you have this sort of boilerplate language that you developed through this program. How do you tailor that to their specific interests? And think about reaching out and getting in touch with the program officer and having a conversation about your specific project and how it might fit what they are trying to fund. Here, I'll stop sharing here. Yeah, and I think, so Arturo and Therese showed me some of the questions ahead of time. RFPs are requests for proposals. So that just means it's a public call that is put out there. So I think, I saw a question ahead of time that was, when to get in touch with the program officer and, how much contact should you have? If you have the opportunity to talk to a program officer from the foundation before you submit, I think that's always worthwhile. It's worth bearing in mind that that's usually not, particularly for government grants, but also for a lot of foundations, that's usually not somebody who has any actual bearing on whether or not you get the funding. They're not going to be on the panel that is making the judgment. They're there really as a resource to you to make sure that you are meeting the eligibility criteria, that that you have the best shot possible. And so once you've tailored your project and hopefully spoken to somebody and you submit, a lot of them are really competitive, and so maybe you don't get it. It's also worth having that line of communication open with that program officer, because then afterwards, if you are declined, you can reach out and say, hey, do you have any feedback from me? Did the panel have any comments that you could share? And sometimes they don't, but a lot of times they do. And that can be really helpful for you going forward into any additional grant opportunity that you look for. But particularly if you decide that you want to try for that same grant the next year, then you can have that saved somewhere so you can go back and even reach out to the program officer again and say, hey, the panel last year loved my project, but they thought, if you had to submit a budget, maybe they thought that was unrealistic, or they had some comment that you needed to work on in that area. And that'll help you narrow down how do you improve for the next round. So yeah, I think that's sort of my spiel on the general overview. There will be something centered around, I just put in, I sent to Arturo and Therese a bunch of links to the kinds of resources that I subscribe to, and then that search engine that we looked at. And yeah, so I'm around if there are any questions.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna share my screen real quick with the handouts that we're gonna be sharing with everybody. And in the meantime, if anyone has questions, we had a couple of questions last week, so I think that you answered everything. Thank you so much, Kate. Let's see if there's anything else in the space.
I guess one thing I didn't touch on here is fiscal sponsors. So one big distinction to look at when you are doing this kind of research is if these are there grants for martial arts? I don't know, probably. So some funders are okay with giving directly to individuals. That's actually pretty rare. A lot of foundations are more comfortable, like legally, it's easier for them to give to another organization that has a 501c3. And so for some opportunities, you'll need to have a relationship with an organization that is interested in presenting your project. So that's just, that can take time. And so if you're not there yet, that's an easy way to say, okay, this is an opportunity that's going to be down the line for me and I'm not, ready to apply to right away.
So I can just talk to a nonprofit and ask them to basically, I don't know what the right word is, represent me or front me if I'm looking to apply to a grant for like a corporation or sponsorship.
Yeah, so there are kind of two ways to go about it. One would be like a true partnership with the nonprofit. So if you, like, for example, I used to work at Brava Theater, and they're really open to being a fiscal sponsor for artists who are interested in presenting that work at Brava in particular. They're also open to other arrangements, but especially if there's something about what you want to do that fits in their space or in their existing programs, you can just talk to them about, hey, I want to put this on stage in your space next year. Can we apply for this grant together? Or I will apply for the grant, but there's something in it for you because you both get the fiscal sponsor fee if I get it, and I will pay to rent the space out of the grant budget. There are also organizations, there's an organization called Fractured Atlas that basically just serves as a fiscal sponsor for artists, and that could be more possibly what you were saying of sort of like they are just there. This is just an arrangement where they're going to vet your project to an extent, but for the most part, they're just going to collect that fiscal sponsor fee and pass along the funds to you.
And I currently sit on the board of a nonprofit. Is it a conflict of interest if I use that nonprofit to apply?
That's a really good question. I think I have seen specific grants occasionally have eligibility, like that would make it ineligible. but that would be, I believe that would be specific by opportunity.
I have a little bit of input about that question. It's a great question, really. You know, this happened to me recently at the Mission Cultural Center, because you know, they are fiscal sponsors of Arts Collab, and they recently invited me to apply to be part of the board. And I was really scared. I was like, oh, if I become part of the board of the Mission Cultural Center, then we don't have a sponsor anymore. And so what the executive director told me was, no, listen, if you are part of this board, is because you are part of this community. And it makes sense that you're creating projects with the community. Basically what happens is you disclose it to the board, and so whenever it comes to making a decision about your particular grant, you take a step back from from being a part of those decisions, right? But other than that, it is possible to be in a board and be fiscally sponsored by an organization.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Kate, would you like to break down just like about this, just to give a little context about what we're seeing here? What is your experience with some of these folks? What can you tell us, just so that people can have kind of like a lead to start looking into it?
Yeah, sure. So that first section, find out about new RFPs. Those are basically just newsletters that I receive that I find helpful, both for looking for grants for organizations that I work with, and then also as an individual artist, because there are additional resources in there in addition to funding. There'll also be residency opportunities or, you know, other things that might be of interest. So that search engine that I showed you was run by Candid. So that first one, they have this philanthropy news digest. And I think they might also have a newsletter that's more tailored to individuals through that site in the second section there, that grantstoindividuals.org. That's run by Candid as well, but is more tailored to individual grant seekers. So that's a good resource. That second one, CCI, yeah, sorry, there are a lot of acronyms on here. Center for Cultural Innovation. So they have their own grant opportunities, and then they're also a really good source of news, information about other opportunities. Yeah, and the California Arts Council.
I got you.
So that's statewide, and they have some of their own individual artist grants as well, but then, you know, in addition, resources. The same thing with the San Francisco Arts Commission. And then I found this last link is a page that I found on the San Francisco Arts Commission site that's other regional, you know, if you're located outside of San Francisco in a different region of the Bay Area. I know that Oakland, I just don't have as much personal experience, so I can't kind of break down what those opportunities are, but it's definitely worth looking. You know, if you're in Marin, there are community foundations up there and government foundations specific to that area. Same thing for Oakland. So that is that local arts foundations for other cities breaks down all of those different resources depending on where you live. Or if you have a collaborator in one of those areas, you know, if you live in San Francisco, but you're doing a project in Oakland, somebody in either place might be open to funding you because you can sort of claim a benefit to either region. So yeah, then the second section, you know, search for funders with similar goals. That's sort of the search process that we looked through. And then at the end there, I just dropped in, that's just a handful of grants that I am aware of as an individual artist, primarily. People that I know are open to funding or primarily targeted at funding individual artists. So Creative Capital is a big one that I think is, some of them change every year what their guidelines are. So it's always worth clicking in and just seeing what the newest round is and what the deadlines are. I think Creative Capital and Map Fund are both open to any discipline. Some of them change those every year. Then there's Chamber Music America, that's a jazz grant. New Music USA can be for recording or for commissioning new music. San Francisco Arts Commission, we talked about a little bit. US Artists International is travel grants for performing artists. And then this is great. Thank you, Therese, for adding this fiscal sponsor section. And yeah, a lot of these are dependent on, that's a great point that, you know, if you are a filmmaker, then it's worth looking at local organizations that are based on that discipline. And they'll probably be open to having that conversation with you. If you could add Fractured Atlas, I could type that in the chat too. But that's one that I know, yeah, that's a national resource. You know, I think it's better if you can find a local 501c3 that's aligned with the kind of work you do in some way. So like Arturo's example of working with Mission Cultural Center, that just makes a lot of sense for this project geographically and in terms of the mission and the community. If all else fails though, or if you're looking at something that is more national in scope, or if you just need somebody to fill in that gap of having the 501c3, Fractured Atlas is that's all they do is fiscal sponsorship for artists.
Beautiful, beautiful. Kate, this is amazing. Thank you so much. Give a round of applause to Kate, please. Snap, 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 snaps. Therese, do you have something to share?
Yeah, I wanted to just add, given that we're, a collective wisdom, if folks have any other organizations or grant providers that they want to add to this list, just drop them in the chat. We will add it to the list because, as we all know, we're here for collective wisdom. So please add any knowledge that you have. And Kate, thank you so much for giving us this roadmap. It's pretty amazing.
Thank you all for having me. And Therese and Arturo both know how to get a hold of me. So if there are any questions, feel free.
Absolutely. And I want to stay here a little bit more. There's a couple of ideas that were coming up as you were talking. The first one is, it doesn't have to be, as you can see, there's a lot when it comes to grant research. It is a practice. It's not that you're gonna sit down for an hour and then you're gonna get everything that you need, right? It's rather a getting used to it, getting used to looking for the different websites. You will find the ones that work best for you to practice. JT was asking, are there grants for martial arts? It really depends on how you frame your work, brother. You can say that you can look for resources for accessibility and youth, or physical education and youth. There's a lot of that kinds of funds being directed to under-resourced communities. We have a really good example from our last cohort. Maricel, our former student from last cohort, Maricel, she was doing or she's doing sound healing ceremonies, and she came up with the idea of doing sound healing ceremonies for veterans, right? So then we created a cultural equity narrative around support of mental health, support people with PTSD, geared particularly to veterans. So now she's not looking for funding for sound healing ceremonies. She's looking for funding for mental health support for veterans. And you see how that changes a lot the scope and the angle of your grant, but also the amount of funders that you can access to, right? Remember that it's all about the narrative that you're putting together and the way that you're presenting things. And another thing that I wanted to say is the more you apply, the more you're going to be refining your grant. So, you're experiencing this right now. If our deadline was tomorrow, you would have to kind of like type as much as you can and just submit, right? But then for the next time that you are applying, you already have a baseline that you can polish and polish more and more and more and more. So your information is just going to get better, right? Your information is just going to get more specific, more streamlined. And that is why, our idea is that we're going to create a space for you guys to research. And so everybody will leave the space with at least 1 to 2 grants to apply in the next year. Ideally, you would leave with 6, 7, 8 in your calendar, right? And we will, we will take the time. Now, the first search engine that Kate, well, the one that Kate was demonstrating on is a paid service that we paid for, and we want to make it accessible for you guys. Okay, so everybody here is going to have 4 hours of grant research available for you. Okay, so the way that we're going to be doing this is during your coaching sessions, you're going to be scheduling the time that you're going to be using it. So, and again, the truth is that this doesn't allow more than one person to be in the system at the time. But so that's why we're going to give you a time in the day where you're going to be like, oh, this day I'm going to be able to research, to look for this. Okay, perfect. Here is the password. And after that, we're going to give it to someone else. Okay, this is the easiest way that we have for right now to socialize the means of grant research. The last thing that I want to say is this upcoming Thursday. Oh, well, I just want to mention thank you for everybody who came in yesterday for our co-working session. It was a really nice time. Everybody had part of their questions answered, and it was just nice to see everyone writing and just making progress in your grant narrative. For next week, during our co-working session, we're going to take time to do grant research. Okay, so the best way that we can support ourselves and each other at this time is part of your homework is going to be go to these links that we're sharing with you. Use your grant research handout. Go to all of these, as many as you can of these links, and just get information. So during our grant research, we're going to be sharing that information. We're going to be sharing what we learned, what we saw, the things that came up that seemed to be important for us, and what are potential grants that you and your peers in the cohort can apply for. Okay. And I know I've had this instinct of being like, oh, this is a perfect grant for me, but if I share it with people, they might apply and get it. So I might not share it with my community. Let me just, because it has happened to me. I want to be very honest, and really, if you share it with people, with your community, with your friends here, we tend to have more chances of getting that funding and keep that funding in our community. Don't worry, there's going to be plenty of people outside of your community that is going to be applying, that you don't know, that don't know you, that don't care for you, or it's not your community. This space that we're building here is not a space that is ruled by scarcity thoughts. Actually, the opposite. If we all have access to this, we all apply for this, and we all benefit from it. So whenever you find an opportunity, whenever you find a resource, please share it. Please share it. We're uplifting not only our voices, but the voices of everybody in the space. Are there any more questions? Ideas? Norman, you have something? What are you thinking, my friend? Okay, what do you guys think? Oh, yeah? Les?
No, I was just reading. I'm sorry. I was reading out loud. Reading the chats.
So what do you guys think about this grant research model? Is this useful?
It's great. Yeah.
Yes.
I was actually wondering if you knew what the procedure was for applying for some kind of corporate sponsorship or what was it called? What did she call it? Some kind of fiscal sponsorship. What is the process of going and looking for that?
That's a
I
great
can answer
question.
that.
Go for it. Go for it.
It varies, Tasha. The one thing I would recommend just out of the gate is that you not just call a random nonprofit them to be your fiscal sponsor or partner. I would like check the check the nonprofit to see if there's somebody you even want to work with, and maybe find out like how other people have had what other people's experiences have been working with them. The process varies from organization to organization. Um, I think you're better off going with someone that's been vetted and that has a history and starting there versus starting with someone who is a nonprofit who's never had a, who's never like fiscally sponsored someone who's you're their guinea pig. Um, there's too much experience in the world to like to start out with the unknown. You can go with the tried and true. The San Francisco intersection for the arts. They're one of the bigger ones, and it's essentially a varied process from one to another. So some organizations require you to be in the process of becoming of it. Some of them require that you have a board. So it really varies. And JT, what was your question again? I just saw it pop up in the chat.
Yeah, could you remind me why fiscal sponsorships could be
The advantages of
beneficial?
having a fiscal sponsor have they have nonprofit and they have the creds. Um, the not necessarily disadvantages, but the realities of that is they're going to take a percentage, and they're also building creds on your project. So like uh, someone like YBCA is getting lots and lots of money because they are serving as a grant provider for lots of people of color and lots of BIPOC folks and lots of queer folks. So that in turn kind of gives them credibility for bigger funding. So it's like it's not just like the goodwill move on the parts. They're also getting credibility from it.
Um,
If there are not any, if there aren't any more questions to their session by doing a pop crime of what you got out of the session
uh,
and how uh, uh, how you plan to Arturo,
sorry, just to
sound like
complement.
you're saying something.
Yes, sorry, just to complement your answer to JT. The practical sense of the fiscal sponsor is um, the tax exempt status. So basically, if an organization gives you money, right, they have to make sure that you are an established fiscal figure that can receive this money, tax this money, all of these things. So what a fiscal sponsor is going to do, and the reason that they're taking a portion of the grant is not because they're like, oh, well, I'm going to take just this, because they're going to be doing the administrative processes and they're going to pay taxes on that money, basically. And so part of the money that they're taking from the grant is tax money. So when you receive this money, you're not taxable for that money. They will be. But again, and as Doris was saying, like it becomes a relationship. I read someone era saying, be careful because you cannot be too political. That's also another thing, because you basically propose your project to the board. They review the project and they say, yes, we're going to be sponsoring that project. Why? Because as a 501c3, which is the status of a nonprofit, you are not allowed to make political contributions. You're not allowed to make specific political support for a party or a candidate. So if within your project, a part of it is, like, we're gonna have a series of performances, and one of those performances is at a Bernie Sanders rally, right? Then your fiscal sponsor can say, hey, listen, you can go perform, but you don't say support Bernie Sanders, because if that happens, then it's a, you know, unfortunately, institutionally, there's kind of like that accountability. Okay. So as you're growing your practice and as you're growing your relationships with your fiscal sponsors, you will be learning more and more about these nuances, these little things that are probably not super important to get in the weeds right now, but it is as we were saying a practice. Is the percentage a set number or does vary? It varies. Particularly. It is always around, it always starts around 10%. Again, because part of that grant money is going to pay taxes for that money. But other than that, some organizations might be living at a 10, 11, 15, 20. It depends.
And that also varies. And I would say not to get too thick in the weeds, but it does vary. So, for example, I have a residency that has $15,000 in it, and I have 6 artists that I'm working with. And anything that they get paid over $600, they have to pay taxes on. But initially, all of that money is sitting with Intersection for the Arts. It is not true fiscal sponsor is taxes on everything. It depends on in the case of my residency, they have like $60,000 for this organization. I got 14,000, and they're giving it out to people. And at the end of the year, they're going to send us W-9 forms to pay taxes. So um, they're not really paying taxes on a lot of it. It varies. So you have to be careful and just make sure you're clear on who's paying the taxes. Unfortunately, most of the time, it's the artist.
Okay. Do we have any more questions, or are we ready to start closing this section? Okay. If you come up with any more questions, please send it our way. You know, as we're mentioning, this is a new portion, a new component of our training, and we really want to see that this is practical, right? Like, we can give you all the theory in the world, but we want you to use it. And if when you are using it is not completely clear, please get back to us, because we really want to polish it and make it usable for you guys. Gracias to Kate. Kate, un aplauso para Kate.
Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Kate.
Thank you so much. And for the wrapping of the session, right, Therese?
Yeah. So what we want to know is what does she want to bring into physical reality after this, you know, given we've had this session? What do you want to bring into physical reality this week?
Take a moment. Think about it.
I'm gonna get some art, some reviews from people after my shows, some video reviews.
Oh, beautiful. Amazing.
My work examples, yes.
Awesome. And Norman, I their artistic relevance and work samples.
I want to continue to polish my racial and cultural equity, as well as in really finding clarity on how my work is weaving together as far as sharing this work sample. So that's what I will bring to reality this week.
Awesome.
Who else?
For me, I want to improve on the artistic relevance and work on my work samples.
I want to be clear and be able to articulate how do I connect my art practice, the art and the project. I want to definitely be able to articulate that clearly.
I want to start organizing my content so that I can have better knowledge of potential work samples and how they apply to grants and residencies that I'm looking at. Also, can we talk about artists in residence at a certain point during our meetings?
We can talk about that in our individual coaching session. We don't have a module set right now.
Okay, thank you.
And Era, I'm sure Arturo can talk about it one-on-one as well. We can maybe not add it a little bit in our next session, but we don't have a module specifically for residencies.
Yeah, if you have any specific questions about residencies, you can write it down and we will give it a few minutes of our next session, for sure.
I'll work on the cultural equity section too.
I'll be working on the cultural equity section and also weaving together my narrative for my work samples.
Is anyone missing? I just want to say that I am personally going to find 3 grants that we can apply for within the next year for core support for the transformative grant writing program. And I think that's about it. Am I missing
I am
anything?
going to
Oh, yes, what you're gonna do, Therese?
I'm going to make self-read. Arturo kind of went over the homework. If anybody else doesn't have anything else to add, I added something to the homework, which is self-care. To maybe take a nap, play your guitar, listen to some music, visit a friend, or just do something that's self-care oriented. And it looks like there's a lot of support for JT in the building and for our whole cohort. So I wish everybody the best in your heart showing up with natural medicine, because that's the best stuff.
Yeah, and 2 last components before we leave. This is very important, and we're excited about this. As you know, we're adding 2 components to this cohort. The first one is the grant research module that we just hosted, and the second component of this is we're gathering a panel of grant to review your grant, basically. So even though we're not officially applying for a specific grant, we definitely want to give you a deadline, because sometimes it's very easy, like, oh, I'll do it later, I'll do it later, I'll do it later. Now you're gonna have a deadline. Now we're trying to give you ease and time so that you can finish all of your projects, but your deadline is going to be Friday, September 9th. Friday, September 9th. So after we finish our last session, which is next week, you're gonna have 2 extra weeks to work on your project. We haven't talked about this, Therese, but I would love to host another co-working session so that we still have a space to connect and to be engaged. And then on Friday, September 9th, you're gonna be submitting your grant, and we're gonna have a panel of between 4 and 6 artists and grant writing experts that are going to review the grant and are going to give you feedback. Okay, so you're gonna be looking at that coming up. Therese?
I have a bad connection, so that's why I'm not on camera. But I just can't overemphasize following through to the finish line with this grant process, even if you're behind, even if it ends up being a little bit beyond. Was it September 9th?
Yeah.
That you finish this process because you have goals, you have lots of things to contribute to our communities, and just the mere act of finishing this stuff is going to update your narrative about your practice. It's going to give you what you need to even just be able to put stuff on your website or put stuff on your Instagram about like what you're up to and how people can support you. And just the emphasis on getting to the finish line is like you're going to leave with so much. And Arturo and I both are willing to support you and whatever that looks like to get to the finish line. So I encourage you to wherever you are in the process, finish what you started because you're so close. And this early in your grant writing game, being able to like kind of see what a panel looks like is part of the dismantling your structure of knowing, and getting some feedback is huge because a lot of times artists, once they don't get the grant, they're like, I'm never applying for another grant ever again, and I don't care why I didn't get the grant. This is the safest ass space that you're going to be able to get feedback on and just get practice. So yeah.
All right, guys. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for this time together. We have one last training session ahead of us. We still have coachings, we still have co-working spaces, we still have ourselves as community, and we're gonna be doing a lot of things. Remember to invite us to your things, whatever is that you're doing, let us know so we can invite more people and join. We might find a space to get together after the training sessions are over so that we can just like meet in person if it's possible at all, and to just get this ball of energy rolling, because we see you growing so much. We see you growing so much. We see you really taking major steps in the right direction, following your vision, following your dream. We're so proud of all the progress that we've been seeing and the commitment that you have. So for now, we're just going to say goodbye. We will see you next Thursday at 6 p.m. for our co-working session, and next Saturday for our final training session. Pew, 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 pew. Pew, 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 pew. That's sorry, silly like that. Gracias, Norman. Thank you, Miley, Vanessa.
Gracias.
Tabitha.
Adios. Ciao, ciao.
Miley.
Ciao, ciao.
Adios. Elizabeth. Appreciate you so much, Elizabeth.
Arturo, I need a moment with
I'm on.
Laz, and then if you want to step away for a second and come